And not only was it certain regulations, but through leprosy, purification came through it. Good God Almighty. All the hell that he was going through, all the things folk were saying, they didn't realize they was pushing him to be clean. Sometimes, God, I hear you. Sometimes God's got to separate you from everything around. Sometimes God's got to allow your house to go into foreclosure. Sometimes God's got to allow your car to be repossessed, because that's not what God has for you. God says just let it go, because I've got something better. I've got something that I've been holding for you. So it is here now that through this leprosy, this man was finding himself being transformed into purification. It is here also according to this Mosaic law. While you have leprosy, you were supposed to wear mourning clothes. You were supposed to keep the beard covered. You were supposed to leave the head in disarray. And you were supposed to go around crying, unclean, unclean, unclean. Not only did you have to deal with this in yourself, but you had to tell everybody around you that you were dirty, filthy, and stank. We got some of them in here right now, but they're not going to be honest. Not only did he have to deal with these issues, but he had to wear dirty, filthy clothes. He had to have his hair looking all crazy. How many women in here can go without a perm? How many women in here can just take their weave out and can walk around? It was here now. Not only did he have to walk with dirty clothes on, not only did his hair have to be in disarray, not only did his beard have to be covered, but he had to cry unclean, unclean, and unclean. If the truth be told in here on tonight, if God came down and exposed all of us, we all would have to walk around crying unclean, unclean, unclean. Well, let me ask you this question. If we all sin and fall short of the glory of God, why do we act like we're better than everybody else? You stand up just like I stand up. You sleep just like I sleep. So how could you call or think that you're better than who I am? Look at your neighbor and say, we all the same. We might got different issues, but we all are the same. So it is here now. Not only did he have to clean unclean, but he had to make sure that as he cleaned unclean, it was for the purpose that everybody would avoid him. Don't you know how we church folk is? Somebody get exploited and we find out what happens. The first thing we say is, I don't know him. The first thing we do is back on up. The first thing we do is say, listen, man, we boys and everything, but I can't be seen in public with you because they got the word on the streets, but we still can conversate, but we can't hang out. How many of us do that today? We don't want to be seen with the bums. We don't want to be seen with the drug addicts. Preach, Bartley, I'm trying to. We don't want to be seen with the homosexuals. We don't want to be seen with anybody because we're so afraid of our own image. Forget about your image. This is about winning souls for God. This is why the churches are so empty. Because, God, can I please? Because we got church Negroes. We got folk that don't want to work the yards. We just want to stay in the cool air conditioned and carry a title. What happened to the folks that didn't mind standing on the corner, passing out check? I'm getting ready to go home. I know you don't like me. What happened to the folk that sacrificed themselves so somebody else can live? What happened to helping your neighbors? What happened to blessing somebody else? Sound man, can I please get that way it was? What happened? What happened to loving each other? What happened to bearing the infirmities concerned about ourselves that we can't love nobody. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, we're going to get through this together. We're going to love each other. I'm not going to let you die. I was watching Discovery Channel. I was watching Discovery Channel, and it said that how when the animals begin to go, how the lions and the tigers will sit there just to get that one, and what the deers would do, the deers would run in a pack, and put the weakest in the middle, and put the strongest on the outside, so that when they came to attack them, they couldn't get through. They would save the weak ones, and because they knew they were strong, they would stay on the outside. Nevertheless, the foundation of God standeth sure. Where's your foundation? What is your hope built on? My hope is built on nothing less but what? Jesus Christ. What happened to what you're built on? But because we're so caught up in church, and because we're so caught up in religion, we can't help nobody else. High five their neighbor and say, just give them 3 minutes. Here now, I raises a question in the text. I know it may not be implemented, but this is my question that I raise. The text says that the man came to him and worshipped him first. Me clean. Point number 2, the leper didn't really know God. How could you say that? Because if you know who God is, you don't ask him, can he? You know he can. So this is what I come to find out. It says that there was multitudes around Jesus, but the man came and asked, worshipped him and asked, can thou make me clean? This is what happens in the church. We come in the church and we do what we see other people do, and don't build a relationship ourselves.
Must be told.
And now they do what they see other people do because they figure that's how they get God to move. But sometimes you've got to go through hell to really get a prayer life. Sometimes you've got to deal with some demons to really come into your own tongue. We got so many copycats running around in the church, shouting like everybody else, dressing like everybody else, preaching like everybody else, walking like everybody else, playing like everybody else. And this is why all our churches sound the same, because we don't have our own anointing, because we're depending on the way somebody else do it. I've come to challenge you today. I know you got more services to go to. See, y'all looking at me crazy here. Let me tell you something. I've been through prayer hell for the last 2 months. I've been through pure hell. I've been dealing with demons like crazy. I've been scared to go to sleep at night. But this morning when I rose and I was on my way to rebirth, you went through, came to make you stronger. I'm going to change the way you preach. I'm going to change the way you study, because all the hell you've been through, I've come to let you know